Grand jury decisions in the cases surrounding the deaths of unarmed black men killed at the hands of police officers, they got people across the nation, as you all know, up in arms. But the hard part is what to do about it, and there's different ways to approach it from the policing standpoint. But then you get to how about from the actual procedure standpoint when it comes to prosecuting the cases and handling the cases? Well, district attorneys in both Ferguson, Missouri and Staten Island have had a lot of folks questioning after the fact the way the justice system works or doesn't work. New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, he's one of those who, while he may not say that's the whole reason, he also does say on the flip side that there could be an alternative, albeit a temporary one. He has asked Governor Cuomo to give him prosecutorial powers over such cases. Here's what he had to say to me yesterday.
The one thing we can do right now is that the governor can designate the Office of the Attorney General, which is the only office he can designate as a special prosecutor, to take over these investigations where there are deaths of civilians caused by the police temporarily, just until we get the legislative fix, which I think increases the pressure on the legislature to take action. And again, this is designed to restore public confidence, because when you have a rift between the community and the police, when people don't want to come forward to report crimes or to be witnesses, it puts us all at risk. I mean, there's just a huge public safety issue right now, today, with this lack of confidence, and I don't see this one calming down and just drifting away. I think it's something we're going to have to address.
All right, I want to bring in our legal panel on this. Jim Kasouras, criminal defense attorney in Manhattan, lecturing at New York Law School, visiting professor at the University of Birmingham in England. Doug Von Oys, founding partner of Carson Von Oys, focusing on corporate misconduct, selected by the Legal 500 as one of the more influential trial lawyers in the country. And Mayo Bartlett, attorney and former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office, and obviously involved in some very high-profile civil rights cases as well. All three of these guys have worked in DA offices as prosecutors. Now, let me strip away, there's politics involved in here too. Of course, the Attorney General would like to handle the cases, and of course, the district attorney in Kings County in Brooklyn, Mr. Thompson, does not want him to take over the case. Forgetting everybody's agendas and what they want, what's the best for justice? And Mayo, I lay it out to our audience, and maybe you tell me I could have done a better way. For me, there's three choices in this. Keep it with the DAs, you find an independent prosecutor, or you in effect say to the Attorney General, until we come up with something better, these cases go to you. If that's the right menu I gave you, what's the best way to go?
I'd go with the AG's office, and I say that because an independent prosecutor could be anyone. It can be somebody who's politically tied in with the district attorney, who's normally a defense attorney or a private attorney who goes in and then puts the case into the grand jury. When you have the Attorney General's office, you have a standing body already with a significant budget. That budget can be increased if necessary, although I don't think it would need to be. And I think that you have to go that route, because although D.A. Thompson thus far has shown a real commitment to looking into any abuse or neglect and second look projects, the same can't be said for every district attorney. And it's not to suggest that each district attorney's office cannot prosecute these cases. It's just extremely difficult. It puts a lot of pressure on them because they are working with these officers every single day. And sometimes when they have an indictment of an officer, it interferes with their relationship with that department.
You know, I thought one thing too, guys. In Staten Island, the population of Richmond County's got a lot of police presence there, and Donovan would have had his own set of conflicts. Well, you can argue, if you're with the police, that your client may not get the best of shakes either in Brooklyn, potentially. So the idea that that Mayo lays out makes sense to me. But you've worked as a prosecutor. When you had to deal with the police, and you have to deal with them, I imagine, Doug, for every criminal case that you guys handle in some way, shape, or form, how hard is it? I mean, we watch Law and Order, the general public here, but how hard is it to go after one of their own and to pursue an indictment when you got to turn around and work with them on the next case that comes across your desk?
I think the perception is that the police and the prosecutors are working hand in hand. And I think that the people don't really understand that there's always tension between the police officers and the prosecutor's office. But it is very difficult. But that's where a real prosecutor, makes his bones. A prosecutor that really has to, deal with those pressures. And that's why I think everybody's talking about removing it from the counties. I think the counties, the prosecutor that's elected is really the person that should be making these decisions. I don't think it should go to a special prosecutor or the AG.
All right, Jimmy, I got one vote for AG, I got one for DA. Where do you fall?
I think a special prosecutor should be appointed. I think
There we go.
well, because you can't take the politics out of it. You can't take the politics out of the AG's request. You can't take the politics out of what's going on in Brooklyn right now, and perhaps that there's an overreaction by the DA there to what wasn't done in the other jurisdictions. The Attorney General is a chief law enforcement officer in New York City. He also works with a lot of these law enforcement bodies. There's always cross designations with the Attorney General, investigators, and particular
All right, well,
other
let me get to
police.
Mayo's point. A, who decides which cases reach this threshold? And B, who picks the IP?
Well, and I think that that's what we were talking about last week. You need to designate certain rules. You need to delineate the rules and draw some lines, and then figure out who does. Now, normally the governor can appoint a special prosecutor, as has been
But
done
just if I
over
could,
the
Jimmy,
years.
for one sec, when I was sitting down with Schneiderman, I said, okay, I think we all agree the eye test, when we saw the guy stabbing somebody in that synagogue, and the cops repeatedly told him don't, and there was video. Nobody thinks that we need a special investigator for that one. Let's say there wasn't video, and let's say somebody gave a different account. Does that reach it? I mean, who's Solomon here? Who picks which case goes?
And the problem is no, you're never going to make everybody happy. You need to draw a line, and whether it's all police shootings for an unarmed individual, it is very hard to pick and choose and figure out where that line is. But you have to draw a line and decide all cases above this line have to go somewhere else.
30 seconds, really 30 seconds.
I think that you got to move it away from the DA's office from the investigative standpoint. You have to remove it from the local police department from the investigative standpoint. You need an independent body that's
Where's
going to
your
be there
line?
all the time.
Shootings?
No, police misconduct across the board.
That's
If
a
I have
lot.
police officers who are making up witnesses and saying that there are confidential informants that don't exist, I don't need my DA's office investigating that. I want an independent body investigating
chokehold,
that.
you're saying?
Not every chokehold. Cases that involve police misconduct, cases that involve injury, serious injury to individuals, or death. I think in those cases you've got to remove it.
There are 2,000 cases, though.
Well, you know, we prosecute how many cases every year?
Yeah, but then you really are taking away a lot from the DA.
And as you can see, there's not consensus at the table, and there's not consensus in Albany or in Buffalo over this as well. We will continue to follow. When we come back, though, we marked on this program that tragic anniversary, 2 years after the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary this past week, where Newtown parents obviously still grieving. Well, they've decided more than just grieve, that they will file a lawsuit, and their target, the makers of the gun that was used in the attack on their children, and also those heroic educators. The question is, can they win their case, or does the gun industry have a special protection no other industry does?